Hello everybody, this is Mike. Alright, so in this video I want to talk about the spectrum of codependency, and on the one end of the spectrum you've got the low-level codependent. This is somebody who has slight codependent tendencies, came from perhaps a loving home, or at least a seemingly very normal loving home, but there's enough emptiness, enough feeling of lack of love and attention on a subtle level that sort of creates this codependent in the rough, shall we say. So this is somebody who doesn't like, the full-blown codependent like myself, who, has met the person and fallen in love within 10 seconds, and, you find out later they're a complete nutbag. But this is somebody who, they have strong boundaries, but they're attracted to the dangerous or the bad boy or whatever it is, and they really hold their boundaries, and over the course of many months or years they get worn down to the place where they lose their boundaries, and then they get sucked in, and then they become a codependent. So that would be what I would say is a low-level codependent. And then on the other end of the spectrum is the absolute chronic codependent super empath covert narcissist victim. Okay? So on the one hand you have low-level codependent. It takes a while. They have codependent unconscious codependent tendencies. You don't see it at first, but after a long period of being worn down, they become a codependent, as opposed to somebody who just comes right out of the womb, hardcore, full-blown victim, codependent, super empath, doesn't even have the first clue of what a normal relationship is, only knows how to be abused and chase after abusers, and or is a covert narcissist himself. That would be the super empath. So, in terms of the, I'm responding to this because as you know, when I say, if you're a codependent, here's what happened to you. You were born in a dysfunctional home, an abusive home, and your horrific lack of love, you're this close to being a borderline. That's true the majority of the time. But there are these low-level codependents that end up, getting pulled into, so to speak, and allow themselves to become more codependent. And these people usually, as I may have said, have loving homes, stable loving homes. There isn't any alcoholism or drug addiction. There isn't any outright abuse. The mom is, cleans and cooks, and the dad reads Wall Street Journal, and they go on picnics and, summer holidays, and they just, for all intents and purposes, they look like every normal family. Because there's people who have said, Mike, everything you say is true except for the part about my home. I mean, I grew up in a loving home. But what I've seen when it comes to the low-level codependents who seem to, accidentally step into the bear trap and they become one, and they don't fall into that category of having been abused or abandoned or neglected as a child. What I've found is that if you dig a little deeper, you'll find that grandma or grandpa, somebody was an alcoholic or a drug addict or a narcissist. And I dated a girl in college, I won't get into it, who ended up having, pretty severe borderline tendencies with me. And I won't get into that, but, at one point she had me in tears, and she said, "Oh, I see you're crying. I know you're telling the truth." And I said, "If I have to cry every time you're upset with me in order for you to believe me, then, this is over." And it was. I ended it. But she had two parents that were loving, and she had a loving, stable home, and the parents got along. There wasn't any alcoholism or anything like that. They seemed really put together, they were well educated, etc., etc. But each of their parents were alcoholics. So the parents' parents were alcoholics. So these were children of alcoholics who had been born in dysfunctional alcoholic homes. They weren't alcoholic themselves, but they had suffered the abuse and the dysfunction of that, and they sought each other out. So they're two adult children of alcoholic codependents who found each other and married. And of course, then there's the whole dynamic of we're not going to do to each other what they did, and there's that bond. But so on the surface, you know, the thing about, you know, the codependence in those kind of scenarios, especially like children of alcoholics, or, you know, in the extreme example, the child of a borderline, what you'll see is perfectionism. And so that's why their lives look so perfect, because they don't make any mistakes, because they've been trained like that. So they also don't have any extreme emotions. So what you end up having is you don't have abuse. Sure, the mother took care of the kids and wiped, you know, cleaned their diapers and fed them, hugged them, and you know, did all the stuff that parents do and loved them. But because they themselves are, you know, a codependent survivor, there's this lack of real depth of intimacy. You can't see it on the surface. If you go spend a week with them, you won't notice anything. You might have the slight feeling that there's just something under the surface. There's some tension you can't really put your finger on. There's, you know, maybe they're a little anal retentive about this, and make sure you close the door this way, but they're nice, but they're still, you kind of have to walk a little bit on eggshells. That's what they find. Low-level codependence, you'll find that there's some kind of, you know, the typical waspy scenario where everything is in its place and perfect, but there's still this, you know, nothing's really wrong. There's just this lack of real love and connection. They don't really show a whole lot of emotion in either direction. It's not that they're not loving. You can laugh and joke with them. They'll, you know, but there's just something. There's some kind of anal retentive, something you can't put your finger on. So that's what creates these low-level codependents who say, no, I've got this great family who loves me and they didn't abuse me and I didn't have that experience. It means that there's this low level. You were still taught that you're not good enough. Maybe it's really subtle. Maybe your dad says, oh, you know, you only got a B+, you should have got an A. And mom says, oh, you want to date him? I guess it's okay if you want to date him. If that's what you want, you know, there's going to be something. It's not overt. But it ends up creating this emptiness and this need to be perfect and this need to find love. And so you become attracted to the, you know, the intensity of the borderline, the intensity of the alcoholic, the intensity of the bad boy. That intensity excites you because at least they do have feelings. Okay, maybe they rage or they lose their temper or there's chaos or something like that, but that excites you because you came from this, you know, this waspy perfect family where there wasn't really anything wrong, no outright abuse, but there wasn't any real emotion, not any deep, intense emotion. And so the subtle message with the low-level codependent is just don't have a lot of feelings. You know, I'm not going to outright abuse you, but just don't have a whole lot of feelings because I'll tune out. I can't handle it. So you end up holding back, and you know, all these feelings so you look for something that's more intense. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, you have the super empath, who I am now going to show you is in fact a covert narcissist. The super empath is an abuser. The super empath identifies as the outright victim, as the ultimate victim, and in fact the super victim. In fact, they shouldn't call themselves super empaths. They should call themselves super victims because they are professional. That is their profession, to be the victim, and then to use their victimhood to inflict as much damage as possible. And they relish in the damage that they cause, all the while complaining about how much of a victim they are. And they will seek out the ultimate abuser, the narcissist, or the extreme borderline, so that they can then live through their extreme unconscious agenda, which is they are out to defeat, destroy, and murder in ritual combat the abuser. But they, on a conscious level, will tell you how, in fact, they are no. They love everybody. They love more than anybody else can possibly love. In fact, they are superior to all humans because they have more love than any other human in the world. I'll prove it to you. I'm going to make this borderline love me. I'm going to make this NPD love me. And as I said before, they relish the narcissist in them because they are covert narcissists, meaning secondary narcissists. Their primary expression to the world is that of the codependent victim. Underneath that, which is when they're stimulated finally and they get what they're angling for, then they get to be the actual sadistic narcissistic abuser. All right, so I'm going to read some comments here. Now, interestingly enough, the person's name who left the comment, they call themselves super empath. My narcissism came out when I saw that. I thought this was somebody who was a member of my channel, and I know that the second level of, if you click the join button, the second level of subscription on this channel is the super empath, which is the one that gives you access to the members only videos where I really go into depth on how I healed myself from my borderline. In my narcissism, I just thought that was somebody making a joke, that they created a YouTube, but no, this person's been online for a long time and their name is the super empath. So they actually are, they identify as a super empath. So I have to assume this person is new to my channel, because if you're on my channel for any length of time, you find out very quickly my thoughts about super empaths and all that. I can't imagine somebody, openly, seriously calling themselves a super empath on my channel if you've been on it for a while. So I have to assume this person is new to my channel, because I don't think anybody would say this if they've been watching it. However, this person is going to typify the covert narcissist abuser. This is an abuser, and you can listen for yourself. So this is in response to my video, BPD, how can you help the borderline the most? And the response is, let me start with the first one. Oh, this one is in response to break the spell of the borderline over you. And the super empath says, just learn to switch from your emotional brain to your logical brain. It takes work, but it's attainable. So right there I see, at the very least, I see codependent denial. I don't see a covert narcissist yet. That just shows me denial. This is, as I see that, this is the codependent who is with the borderline. They've been with the borderline long enough to see that the borderline splits, and they're trying to find a strategy to keep them from splitting. And so they keep themselves safe in the process. So they say, I'm going to turn off my emotions, and that way I can, maintain some equanimity in the relationship without this person splitting on me. Pure denial, of course, that'll never work. That sounds like somebody who would call themselves a super empath, but based on that, it sounds just like a codependent. Then, BPD, how can you help the borderline the most? Then this person says, it's complicated if you don't leave your emotions out of it and just watch the show. In other words, if it's complicated, by complicated, that's codependent speak for, it's incredibly painful and destructive for them if they don't leave their emotions out of it. So this, again, this person acknowledges that they have emotions, but they've come up with a defensive strategy to avoid being hurt. So they're going to turn their emotions off and just watch the show, as if that's some kind of a valid thing to do. Again, this is the only way that somebody could come up with this, is if they're trapped in a severely destructive codependent cycle and they can't get out of it. They're addicted to the person, but they're trying to minimize the damage as much as possible, instead of actually getting love, which is the whole point. And the super empath is not acknowledging that what they want more of anything is love. This is just, this is post-traumatic stress disorder of somebody just trying to handle the craziness, but they're making it out as though, no, this is what I do. It's sort of like playing chess, and it's kind of, they're talking about it in this really detached way, like it's not just really damaging and destructive to them. And I just learned to turn my emotions off, as if that's something to be proud of. That's pathetic and sad. I tried doing it. I couldn't do it. So it's complicated if you don't leave your emotions out of it and just watch the show. The only power they have, meaning the borderline, the only power they have is from your emotions. So, you see that. So if I turn my emotions are how they get to me. Oh, I just won't have any emotions. First off, it's just pure denial. What you want is the emotions. The only reason you're there is because of how emotional the borderlines are, and the stimulation, because where you came from, there wasn't any emotions, and or you were shamed out of your emotions, or outright abused for even having them. So now you find the borderline who's all about emotions, and of course that's all you want. And now, in order to avoid them splitting on you, you're going to become like your parent was. You're going to turn your emotions off and not give them the love that they so desperately crave, and the love that you so desperately want to give and receive. You're going to turn that off and be okay about it. Pure denial. So the only power they have is from your emotions. Once you know that, you can be around them all day. If they misbehave, put them in their place. That's it. It's like babysitting. What about any of that is at all desirable? You're talking about a romantic partner, somebody that's supposed to meet you at your level and give you love and give you nurturing and give you companionship and fellowship and enhance your life and make your life better. And you're working so hard to avoid having any feelings, and so you're going to deny them your feelings so that you keep them attached to you, because that their supply, that their drug is your emotions, so you're not going to give any of that to them, and that keeps them chasing after you. And then you're going to treat them like children, and you're going to be the domineering, abusive parent who puts them in their place. That's it. It's like babysitting, and you're talking about it as though this is something. No. If you work it, you can get this really great, this really, really great condescending pleasure out of putting them in their place. Having control over them. And the fact that you put that out there proudly, not understanding how pathetic and horrible that is, just from the perspective of not getting loved, which is, we all know, as the super empath, that's what you want more than anything else. But you're willing to just have them around you all day. Once you know that, you can be around them all day. That's your goal, is just have them around you all day. And if that means, not having any emotion, just as long as they're around me. That's pathetic. But now we're going to find out that this person is actually a covert narcissist who enjoys abusing the borderline, taking advantage of the borderline's weaknesses and using them to your advantage, and to gain sadistic pleasure out of torturing them. All right, this again is in response to BPD. How can you help the borderline the most? Which, of course, in that video, what I say is the way you can help the borderline the most is by leaving them. By leaving them, going no contact, and suggesting they get help. That's what I say in that video. Here's the response to that. I'm assuming the person might not have even watched the video. Might have just responded to the title. Super Empath says, they, meaning the borderlines, they are like a science experiment. So now you've objectified them. They're not a person with feelings and an identity and needs. They are now an object. They are a lab rat. You know what happens to lab rats? They get sliced open and they end up dying from whatever disease you infect them with, so you can watch what happens to the immune system. They, the borderlines, are like a science experiment. Stay the scientist. Develop the emotional switch between your emotional brain and your logical. I play with my borderline all the time now. It's like a sandbox. They mirror you. Mine does anyway. If you are nice all the time, they are nice. It's not healthy, but it's amazing what I'm learning. I put my glasses on, she does. If I shower, she showers. If I change my shirt, so does she. If I tell her I have work to do, she gets upset like a kid. Every sentence out of her mouth is crazy. I have hidden cameras all over my house now. I'm studying. Laugh out loud. I got to be honest, when I read just the name Super Empath and I read the other comments, my first instinct is that this is a woman. Because this is my experience, this would be the typical feminine, codependent, clingy. This is somebody who, and so I'm shocked to see, oh, this is actually a man. It's not a woman. Super Empath. Even the name Super Empath, I think, is a woman, not a man. I don't know what that says about me, but I mean, do I even need to go into it? This is obviously a sadistic, covert narcissist abuser. The covert narcissist is somebody who's is a narcissist, a secondary narcissist. They're secondary meaning their primary mode of their modus operandi is to be a victim, and show you how victimized they are and talk about it and brag about it. Their secondary response to that is to actually be a sadistic abuser. This is sadistic. This person is knowing. This person has said, I am a scientist and you are my lab rat, and I'm finding out what your weaknesses are so that I can exploit them for my sadistic pleasure. So you stay the scientist, meaning that you have no emotional connection. So this is in direct, contrast to the super empath, who's all about emotions and empathizes with other people's emotions. And you're loving and caring. The empath, self-styled empath, says, I go around loving other people. That's what I am. I'm more loving than others. And here you are saying that you've now perfected completely turning your emotions off, treating the borderline like a lab rat that you can manipulate, and that you are, as you say, you're laughing out loud. You're getting, really sadistic pleasure out of it. You develop the emotional switch between your emotional brain and your logical. There is no logical and emotional brain, by the way. There's just the brain. You are doing exactly what the borderline had to do in infancy in order to survive. When the borderline splits, which again, let's be clear, the difference between a borderline and a narcissist is that the borderline does not want to harm you. When they're in their vulnerable state, they're not interested in harming you at all. They don't have any grand plan of how to destroy you. When they become the secondary psychopath, when they out of their absolute fear and horror of what love will do to them and their fear of abandonment, which is a very primitive, it's the most primitive, reptilian brain response to danger that there is. When they're responding out of that, that's not something they enjoy. They're doing it to survive, and they have this ability to switch their emotions on and off. They dissociate. They don't dissociate because it's fun. They dissociate because the pain is actually could kill them. That's why they have a mental illness. That's why if you are a codependent, you need to get the hell away from them. Not because they're evil geniuses, but because they are a wild, unpredictable animal. It's like having a snake for a pet. It's like having, talk to the Las Vegas guys who had all those tigers and lions, and the one guy, just a matter of time before the wild animal tiger takes you by the head and drags you off stage. It's just a matter of time. It's not the tiger's fault. That's who they are. That they are a wild animal. They don't think rationally. They have these killer instincts that will come on, and it's an animal that's trapped, and you're using it for tricks. It's just a matter of time before the lion or the tiger splits on you and tries to take your head off. It's just a matter of time before the borderline splits on you. When you understand that, you go, oh, it's not about me. This is a person that has a problem. I thought I knew who they were. I realize now I don't. I've got to get the hell out. You're not doing any of that. You now are, I mean, I can just say, turning the emotional brain. That's you are now training yourself. According to you, you are training yourself to become a psychopath. So what you're saying here is, in order to be with a borderline and make it work, you have to become the narcissistic, psychopathic abuser. I'm training myself how to do that, and I'm enjoying it, and I'm bragging about it to you. If you want to do the same, here's how it's done. And again, there's no intimacy here, which is why the borderline stays. You now have taken away all of the intimacy. You know, and they get the smell of the intimacy, which keeps them chasing after you, idealizing you. So what you're trying to say here, without maybe realizing it, is what I want to keep them in the idealized stage, but I don't want to make myself vulnerable. Here's how to do that, which is exactly what the narcissist does, which is what you are. She's with you because you are a covert narcissist. Covert narcissist has no identity. And because they have no identity, they create a false identity. Your false identity is the super empath. You know, in fact, heroes, you know, superheroes. Superheroes are narcissists. Superheroes are secondary narcissists. Batman, for example, you know, the pain of losing his parents is so overwhelming for him, he becomes the Dark Knight. Super empath, right? The Hulk. I don't want to fight. I don't want to fight. Oh, you've made me angry, and now I'm the Hulk. And now it's okay because I am now the Hulk, and I'm filled with rage, and I'm not human anymore. Puny humans. We're talking about, you know, these are the fantasies of codependents, borderlines, narcissists. The false identity, you know, false experience appearing real, you know, the false identity you put out there, which is hiding underneath, you're so empty that you can't even acknowledge your own incredible black hole of emptiness and pain. And the sad part is that you can't find, or you can, you obviously can, but you believe that you can't find, you can't find love, that nobody will love you. So the best you can do is find this mentally ill person who has the emotional capacity of an infant, and you, knowing that, are going to manipulate and control that aspect of them so that you can keep them attached to you, and you are going to, you know, keep them around you. Now they're, like you said, you can be around them all day. And you can get them to mirror you. In other, they're not being authentic. You're not helping somebody be more authentic with you. You're helping them to stay in that false facade of, I'm going to do whatever mommy wants so that mommy will keep me around. And you're taking pleasure out of it, a sadistic pleasure. Let me just read it again. I play with my borderline all the time now. It's like a sandbox. They mirror you. Mine does anyway. I mean, mine, it's like you own it. It's like a thing. Mine does. My car has this. I mean, or this brand of car does this and that. Well, mine does. It's a thing. She's now a thing. If you're nice all the time, they're nice. It's not healthy, but it's amazing what I'm learning. I put my glasses on, she does. If I shower, she showers. If I change my shirt, so does she. If I tell her I have work to do, she gets upset like a kid. Every sentence out of her mouth is crazy. I have hidden cameras all over my house now. I'm studying. Laugh out loud. Anyway, you get my point. That is, you can't get any more narcissistic and abusive than that. I mean, that's, you know, the borderline abuses you, but, you know, they're at a deficit. This is somebody who's, I mean, it's just they're proud of how they're, you know, and they're presenting themselves as this loving person. So much so they're the super empath. Anyway, you get my point. So the whole point of this is to take a look at yourself, to see yourself in that. I see myself in that. I tried to do that. Actually, I didn't try to do that. I thought about trying to do that. When my borderline, when the final discard came before I went no contact, I fantasized about doing this kind of a thing with her because I was so desperate for her love. If I could, and I consciously thought she was with a narcissist. Maybe if I turn myself into an abusive narcissist, she'll love me. I remember thinking about it, and I actually started imagining scenarios about how I would be and what I would do and try and be like her, her narcissist ex, until I realized that that's just not who I am, and I would lose my soul. And it was as painful as it was, the thought of never having her again. I had to go no contact. So this is what happens. This is where I could have gone. I wouldn't have been able to survive it, I don't think, but sadly this person can. So the sliding scale is that, you can get there. Maybe you're not a covert narcissist yet. You can get there if you stay in the denial. You can get there. If you're not willing to look at your true motives, your true motives are you want to be loved. Your deepest desire is to be loved, and everything you do when you're giving to them, you're not giving to them out of true, unconditional compassion and love. You're coming completely from your selfish desire. And it's okay to have that selfish desire if you acknowledge it. And the great thing about everybody, including borderlines, is if you go to a borderline with pure honesty and say, what I want is I want you to love me and let's connect. And if you take action on that and really connect with them, then they will split on you, and you'll find out that they don't want that. They ultimately don't want that. But you will be aware, wow, what I really want is to be loved, and this person can't love me. I'm going somewhere else. But if you deny it like this, and you pretend that you are this super empath who has this ability to turn their emotions on and off, and you have the ability to manipulate the needs and you're watching and finding the needs of the borderline and then using that against them in order for your sadistic pleasure. You can become that. Do you want to do that? I don't want to do that. I want to be happy. I want love in my life. I want to be loved, and I want to love. In order for me to be able to do that, I got to be honest about what my thoughts and my feelings are all the time. Turning your emotions off is going to turn you into a covert narcissist. Okay? I beat that horse to death. I got other stuff I got to do. So I'm going to go, and anyway, talk to you guys later. Click the join button at the super empath level, and you can find out what I did to completely heal myself from my borderline toxic relationship. Also, the 90-day challenge, you can click on thunderwizard.com and click around for the Warrior 90-day challenge. And if you want to enhance that and find a way to make your life even more successful and be able to live your truth and your passion and gain happiness in your life, that's what I'm teaching here at thunderwizard.com. All right, that's it. I'll see you guys soon.